What if you could retire in just 10 years, starting with $0? Sounds impossible, right? But at its core, the path to financial independence is shockingly simple. So simple, in fact, that everything you need to know could fit into the next 15 minutes. But if it's that easy, why isn't everyone doing it? Why do 99.99% of people never make it? And why does it feel nearly impossible for most? That's exactly what we're breaking down today, because the truth is, most people don't even know where to begin. And even fewer stick with it long enough to see it work. So let's shatter the belief that retirement only happens in your 60s and break down the exact blueprint that's helped countless people reach financial independence far earlier than they ever imagined. A strategy you can follow, even if you're starting from zero today. When it comes to building wealth and retiring early, most people get this wrong. It's not about how much money you make. Sure, you might be thinking,
come on, if I made $10 million right now, I'd retire tomorrow.
But here's what most people miss. Financial independence doesn't come from how much you earn. It comes from how much of that income you actually get to keep. I've seen people making $250,000 a year living paycheck to paycheck, blowing it all on beachfront rentals, leased Ferraris, and $20,000 vacations just for Instagram likes. And I've seen people making $80,000 a year saving half their income after taxes, quietly building wealth until, over time, they're worth more than the high-income spenders. So, what's the real secret to reaching financial freedom? It comes down to living like you're broke, no matter how much you make. Whether someone earns nothing in a month or $100,000 a month, their spending stays exactly the same. They wear $5 shirts from H&M. They buy used cars that hold their value. They buy a duplex, live in one side, and rent out the other to cover their costs. They cook at home instead of eating out. Okay, maybe that's extreme and not for everyone. But if you want this to work, you have to focus more on controlling your spending than chasing a higher income. That's the first rule of retiring in 10 years. Save relentlessly. Most people don't realize this. With just your income and expenses, you can figure out exactly how long it'll take to retire. And it takes less than a minute. If someone spends 100% of their income, they'll never retire because there's nothing left to save. But if they save 25% of their income, they could retire in around 32 years while keeping the same lifestyle. Save 50% and they could retire in 17 years. Save 70% and they're looking at just 8.5 years. The takeaway? The higher the percentage you save, the faster you reach financial independence. And the sooner you can do whatever you want with your time. Even before discovering the FIRE movement, many self-made investors shared one common trait. They were naturally frugal. They didn't waste money on things they didn't need. And instead of spending, they kept their money invested, giving them the freedom to move when they needed it. There's a saying that's simple but spot on. The rich stay rich by living like they're poor. The poor stay poor by living like they're rich. That's the mindset that often sets people apart. Take someone who saves consistently for a few years. They might build up enough to make their first investment, whether it's a rental property, a small business, or a portfolio of stocks. And that's often the moment everything clicks. Because once those savings start working for them, they realize something powerful. If it worked once, it can work again. Until eventually, they've built enough to cover all their living expenses, and financial independence becomes reality. That brings us to the next key, cutting back on expenses to speed up your retirement timeline. If the goal is to retire in 10 years, it's critical to save as much as possible and live below your means. Here's the simple math. For every extra 5% of your income that you save, you could shave years off your time to retirement. Every little bit really does count. Now, when most people hear cut expenses, they picture something out of extreme cheapskates. Selling the car, biking everywhere, living off-grid, growing their own food. And sure, that might help. But the truth is, you don't have to go to crazy extremes to make a difference. There are plenty of ways to save money without locking yourself inside the house. Take housing. The biggest expense for most people, often eating up half of their income. One powerful way to cut back is through house hacking. That's when someone buys a multifamily property like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, moves into one unit, and rents out the others to cover the mortgage. It can also work with a single-family home that has a guest house or a rentable basement. Done right, the rent from the other units covers most or even all of the housing costs, which basically means free rent. Of course, this takes saving up for a 10% to 20% down payment first, but that single move can unlock nearly free housing for years. And if buying a property isn't possible yet, there's rent hacking, where you rent a home, then sublease out extra bedrooms to cover the cost. Even though you don't own the place, you're still lowering your living expenses, which frees up more money to save and invest. As for everything else, the basics of smart spending apply. Drive a reliable used car instead of a new one that loses value fast. Use credit card sign-up bonuses to cut down on travel costs. Cook at home instead of eating out. Wait for sales before making big purchases. And no one can tell the difference between a $5 shirt and a $50 one. Some people even wear the same favorite shirt for years, and it works just fine. Finally, here's one simple habit that can save a surprising amount. Whenever you want to buy something, wait a week. In most cases, the urge fades after a few days. And waiting helps you figure out which purchases actually matter long term. If the goal is to retire in 10 years, there's one thing that absolutely cannot exist in your finances. High interest debt. It's the kryptonite of financial independence, and it works directly against everything you're trying to save and build. Most people don't realize how damaging things like credit card debt, medical debt, and high interest student loans really are. For example, to break even on typical unsecured debt, you'd need to earn 15% to 20% on your money every single year. And let's be honest, that's not realistic for most people. Debt like this doesn't just slow you down, it pulls you further and further away from your goal. That's why eliminating high interest debt isn't optional, it's a must. Smart investors avoid carrying credit card balances. They don't finance things they can't afford, and they stay away from any debt that isn't low interest, fixed rate, and ideally tax deductible, like a mortgage or car loan under 4%. The only kind of debt that's even worth considering? Debt attached to something that makes you more money than it costs, like a 3% mortgage on a rental property that earns 9%, or a 2% car loan when inflation is running at 7.5%. In those rare cases, debt can actually accelerate the path to financial independence. But if it's not tied to a money-making asset, it's almost always better to stay away. Cutting back and saving is the foundation of financial independence. But if the goal is to retire in 10 years, saving alone won't be enough. You also have to invest. Now, this part sounds complicated, especially with endless YouTube videos breaking down stock analysis for hours. But for most people, the smartest way to invest is actually simple. You can start with tax-advantaged accounts and take advantage of your 401k, Roth IRA, and HSA accounts because saving on taxes puts more money back in your pocket. Invest consistently, long-term. Take a set percentage of every paycheck and put it into your investments, no matter what the market is doing. Don't try to time the market. It's tempting, but guessing short-term prices almost never works. Stick with low-fee index funds that track the entire market. Vanguard, Schwab, and Fidelity all offer great options with competitive rates. And most importantly, just wait. Let the markets work over time, because historically they trend upward in the long run. Here's where things start to get a bit more challenging, because how long this takes and how fast you can actually retire comes down to a simple choice. If someone is starting from zero and wants to retire in 10 years, they've got two options: make a lot of money or spend very little. For example, on a $70,000 income, it's theoretically possible to retire in 10 years, but only if they live on $21,000 and invest the difference consistently. That would allow them to maintain the same lifestyle indefinitely after those 10 years. Of course, they could also pick up a side hustle to increase income, or even keep working if they want to, but they'd never have to work again as long as they stick to that spending level. So, without increasing income, the entire strategy depends on saving 65% of earnings for a full decade. And if they can do that, mission accomplished. Let's be honest, if the goal is to retire in 10 years and still enjoy a middle-class lifestyle afterward, working a traditional job probably won't get you there, unless that job pays an exceptionally high salary. If someone's already making a lot of money, great. Then it's just a matter of living frugally, saving 65% for a decade, and they're done. But for everyone else chasing that 10-year retirement goal, the smart move is to work in a career that pays based on results, not time. Here's why. When you're paid for your time, there's a hard limit. There are only 24 hours in a day. So eventually, you'll hit a ceiling on both the number of hours you worked and the income earned. But if you get paid on results, you can leverage your work, streamline it, scale it, and potentially earn more without working harder. Take real estate, for example. An agent doesn't get paid for clocking in hours. They earn when they close deals, and that gives them the freedom to focus on high-value opportunities that maximize income for the same effort. Or content creation. Making a video for 10 people takes the same effort as making one that reaches 1 million, but the payoff, completely different. That's the power of result-based work, finding a way to increase income without trading more time. And that's a game changer when the goal is financial independence. One powerful idea that stands out from the millionaire fast lane is this: think like a creator. not a consumer. Instead of just watching YouTube videos, make YouTube videos. Instead of shopping on Etsy, open your own Etsy shop. Instead of watching gaming streams, stream your own gameplay. Instead of doom scrolling on TikTok, create content that people binge watch. Instead of listening to podcasts, launch your own podcast. Okay, I think you get the idea by now. The mindset shift is simple. Stop consuming what others make and start building value of your own. Well, except for this YouTube channel. That's the one thing you're definitely allowed to consume. Let's talk real numbers because everyone loves specifics. If someone's 20 years old and wants to spend $50,000 a year in retirement by age 30, they'd need around $1.65 million invested. That means investing about $93,000 a year with an average 8% return to hit that target. Now, if they can earn $150,000 a year before taxes and live off $22,000, that's doable within a decade. Of course, certain investments could speed this up, especially if someone's hands-on, like in a sales role or a high-paying industry. If this seems far-fetched, just look at Peter Adini, or better known as Mr. Money Mustache. He retired at 30, working as a software engineer and earning about $67,000 a year, not a fortune. By living frugally and investing the majority of his income, he built roughly $800,000 in investments plus a mortgage-free home. He followed the 4% rule, living off just $25,000 a year and has stayed retired ever since, all while running a popular personal finance blog. Okay, you might ask,
What about someone earning less than $50,000?
if saving isn't enough yet, the focus shifts to making more. Maybe by learning a new skill, switching jobs, or adding a side hustle. Because here's the bottom line. Retirement in 10 years is all about the math. Controlling spending sets the foundation. Increasing income determines how quickly you reach the goal. Combine those two and anyone can work backwards from their dream retirement date. No need to overcomplicate it. Yes, it sounds obvious, but here's the truth. To retire early, you usually need to save 65% to 90% of your income over a decade. That's what Mr. Money Mustache did with one full-time job, frugal habits, and disciplined investing. For many, early retirement isn't about quitting work. It's about choosing the path you want, building something new, starting a passion project, or simply enjoying more free time. And after 10 years of unwavering effort, that choice is exactly what financial independence brings. And if you want to see a real-life example of someone who quietly built massive wealth on an average salary, check out my video on Ronald Reed, the janitor who became a multi-millionaire by simply saving, investing, and living below his means. It's the perfect example of how financial independence isn't just possible, it's been done before.